what we're doing all the time, guiding each other without realizing and moving each other through the space-time continuum that we quantum leaping through reality based on our interactions through words all the time. And if we live in the framework that we're jumping through many, many frames, billions of times per second, we're jumping through standalone frames of reality. And every time we make significant shifts in our perspective and our energy, then we make quantum leaps into more expanded versions of ourselves. We probably perceive it as a transfer of energy, high vibrational energy. And I've experienced that firsthand from Bashar, who, if you know channelers, you will know Bashar. I went to see him live this year, and I received such an intense amount of energy that I had to go to my car in the interval, and I wasn't sure if I could drive home. I felt like the car was floating. I felt like I was floating. I got this massive download of information. Welcome to Transformation Embodied, a space where personal evolution meets expanded consciousness. I'm Rosie, a channeler, an energy healer, here to walk with you on the path of awakening. Each week, we explore what it means to live in alignment with your soul through stories, insights, and practical tools that bring transformation into your body, your mind, and your everyday life. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into the next chapter of your awakening together. Hello, welcome. And today I am inspired to talk about words, the power of words in general. I was just thinking today about something my brother said to me once and how it changed the whole trajectory of my life in that moment. And he said it quite casually. He probably doesn't know that he did that. And he was really just giving me an honest opinion. He just so happened to have said the thing that I needed to hear in that moment to put me on the path that I needed to go on. And it absolutely was the right path. And it became one of my greatest achievements, one of my greatest passions that I've ever had in life. And I almost talked myself out of it because of what I thought about myself, and his words changed my mind. We've all had those moments. We've had those moments where somebody just says something and we go, yes, and it flips everything. Or we've been the one who said something and it flips everything for somebody else. And we're like, they're like light bulb moment, and we're like, what did I say? What did I do? It's not like some major kind of intentional sort of sacred moment. It's just in conversation, somebody says a thing and it flips your whole mindset upside down, and you go, oh, no, you're right. And that's a new perspective. Now I have a new perspective. So I want to talk about this in relation to, because this is what we're doing all the time, guiding each other without realizing and moving each other through the space-time continuum that we believe in, quantum leaping through reality based on our interactions through words all the time. And if we live in the framework that we're jumping through many, many frames, billions of times per second, we're jumping through standalone frames of reality. And every time we make significant shifts in our perspective and our energy, then we make quantum leaps into more expanded versions of ourselves. The versions of ourselves already exist. They're waiting there as a potential, but we just have to align with it. And sometimes somebody saying the right thing in the right moment just creates that kind of burst of consciousness, or alters your consciousness, or expands your awareness in the moment, and it shifts you. It shifts you onto what people call a different timeline. Timelines actually don't exist because there's nothing linear about time, and time actually is an illusion. But perceptually onto a different path of energy, let's say. So my work in channeling, obviously, is a prime example of that. and people often confuse what's happening in channeling as words being translated, words being transferred. But there's actually this very high vibrational information that's coming through that is being reorganized and then expressed as words. But within the expression of words, it's like the energy is encoded within it. And the way that I actually see this is more like a soul contract or a soul agreement, that, the circumstances under which two people come together and one of them is offering a channeling. Initially, there is a soul contract or a soul agreement that is made that, hey, you need help with this. The higher minds kind of come together, as it were. You need help with this. I'm going to be the one who's going to bring that support in the physical dimension to guide you. And so then the channeler offers the information, and the person receiving the information then has a choice whether they integrate it or not based on their kind of path, right? And so this is why when people are believers, when they believe that channeling can change their lives, when they believe that there's a powerful energy that they're receiving, it has way more impact generally, because the person has created an agreement or initiated a system for them to heal or be guided, or essentially to quantum leap onto whatever new reality it is or new identity they're hoping to move into, to overcome the limiting beliefs that are stopping them from moving into that new identity, that new reality, quantum leaping into the new reality. So although we perceive it on a physical, I would probably perceive it as a transfer of energy, high vibrational energy. And I've experienced that firsthand from Bashar, who, if you know channelers, you will know Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka. I went to see him live this year, and I received such an intense amount of energy that I had to go to my car in the interval, and I wasn't sure if I could drive home. I felt like the car was floating. I felt like I was floating. I got this massive download of information. He communicated with me telepathically. I mean, there was just so much happening. And I knew before I went that was the reason why I was going. I wanted to be in his energy and see what that was like. So although on the physical, we kind of perceive it in that way and we experience it in that way, in the higher realms or other dimensions of reality, there are agreements that are made that we're going to initiate those experiences. And I'm going to be the one who's going to come along and I'm going to give you the message, and that is going to initiate you onto this new path of energy. So that's how I see. That's one way to look at the transfer of words. Right. And it's very possible, I think, because we're always channeling. People don't realize they're always channeling something. And I think it's very possible that at certain times people might get spikes of energy or intuition through, or they feel somehow just guided to say a particular thing, and the other person receives it in exactly the way they're supposed to, and it puts them on a new path, even just in passing conversation that doesn't seem very significant. And so it's not necessary for us to get into a whole kind of analysis of, how am I using my words? Am I saying this correctly? Am I using this language in a high vibrational way? Am I, all the words that come out of your mouth are in perfect alignment with the moment, just as all of your actions are. Nothing is ever wrong. It's simply where you're supposed to be at that moment. And that's aligned with your soul blueprint. That's aligned with your intention, your higher mind, your overall plan, your physical mind. And even if you perceive it as wrong, sometimes the wrong thing is what shows you need to do something else. And so, in fact, it's still the right thing, And the same is true with words. Sometimes you say the wrong thing and it reminds you actually of what the right thing is, or I should say preferred thing. So So yeah, our words are so incredibly impactful. And it's interesting now that I'm a channeler. Obviously, I didn't know that I was a channeler before I was 30. I had no idea. And my friends used to say, you just seem to kind of put people on like the right path. You just seem to impact people's lives in a positive way. And we're not really sure how you do it. And I remember one of my friends, or two of my friends actually, at my wedding came up and said that. And they were a bit tipsy, obviously. I wasn't because I was pregnant. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know how to take that. But actually, what I realize now is that that's exactly what I do in my channeling. I say the right thing at exactly the right moment, and it changes people's perception to the degree that they go on a different path that is much more enlightened and much more positive and much more aligned with who they really are. And they're able to heal and they're able to see themselves in a different light. That's the most important thing, I think. To show someone and to be a mirror. And that's what it is. What my brother did when he said those words to me, and I'll tell you what he said. I was saying that I wanted to be a teacher, and I had spent a lot of summers working with children during carnivals and things like that. And I said I wanted to be a teacher. And I was about 24 or 25. And I said, but to be honest, I don't think that I can do it because I didn't do very well at school. And I'm not really sure if I'm clever enough to do something like that. And of course, all of my jobs up till then had been based on the idea of limitation, the idea that I just wasn't good enough to do anything remotely sort of interesting that was kind of passionate or involved a slightly higher level of professionalism. And he said, what? What does school have to do with anything? He said, not doing well at school doesn't mean that you're not clever. That's complete nonsense. And it completely changed everything. From that moment, I said, yeah, he's right. Look at the amount of people who have failed at school, horribly failed at school, who are incredibly successful. And obviously now as somebody who did go into education, and I did do it after that because I totally flipped my mentality after that and realized that I didn't have to limit myself and I could do it. I now know that a lot of the people who don't do well in education are incredibly creative. They're innovators. They actually do well because they don't follow the rules. And those are the people that are successful in the world. Every single person who has changed the world drastically has not followed the rules and probably didn't do well in school. So he was absolutely right, of course, and I respected him and his view because he is an intelligent guy and has been very successful academically and professionally. I decided that I could do it. And from that moment, then I was a new person. I was in a different reality, a different body, different me, because I completely flipped that switch immediately after saying that. And I went on my quest and I became a teacher, and I got, for my first assignment, which was 50% of my grade, I got the top marks in the whole class. And I completely stunned myself. I had no idea that I was capable of doing any form of academic work to that degree. And, of course, I've gone on and I've did my education to master's level. And then I studied psychology at master's level. I've done academic things. I'm still a creative at heart, but I've done academic things. I've proven to myself that I can do it. And I am clever enough to do it. So that was his words in that moment that changed it and gave me permission to go ahead and to take that leap and to jump into that new identity, that new version of myself. And I did. And it was my passion for many years. It was my passion. And teaching still very much is my passion, obviously, just not in education, because education is in a bad way right now. And if we think about words in the new world, we're kind of thinking about, because books have always held a lot of weight, language, being able to write, being able to communicate through written language is always highly regarded and evidence of somebody's level of education and understanding. And now we have AI. And AI can replicate the style of writing. It can build a book for you without you necessarily having to create it really yourself. You can just kind of give it the ideas. So where do we sit with the idea of words and language now? And also from my perspective as a channeler, we're moving towards telepathy. And what's interesting is that when my guides communicate with me, especially mostly my extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional guides, they use a language in a way that is, what's the word when it's meaning? What's the meaning, the kind of origin of the word? Etymology. So they use etymology. So I will channel something. I will use a word that I never use because it's Dimitri using the word. And I think, why on earth is that word in that sentence? That makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. But when I look up the etymology of the word, then I find it fits perfectly in accordance with the meaning of the sentence. It makes perfect sense. And so I think what we're going to do is refine the way that we use language so that our words are more closely related to, more succinct and more closely related to their etymological origins or their etymology. I'm not sure how you would say that. Very ironic, isn't it? Not knowing how to use the language when I'm talking about language. So that's where I think we're going with language, because if we're becoming more sort of higher intelligence, more extraterrestrial-like, then in our intelligence, at least, then I think we will start to communicate in a way which is more like them. And the way that they communicate is through meaning. Yeah. Anyway, so that's words, the power of words. Thank you for tuning in to Transformation Embodied. If today's message spoke to you, share it with somebody who's ready to step into their own transformation. For more channeled guidance, resources, and ways to work with me, visit transformation-embodied.com. Until next time, keep listening to your higher self, keep embodying your light, and remember, your transformation is already unfolding.